Hello guys, welcome back to Simple Best for Living. Today I would like to share a recipe for Aloo Paratha or Aloo ala Roti as you call it in Fiji. This is an easy recipe, just a few tips that I'd like to share with you guys, and it's very delicious, so I hope you give this a try. For this recipe, you're going to need some boiled potatoes. I'm using 4 potatoes here that I've boiled. You're going to need some cilantro if you like it, some spices, oil, salt and pepper to taste, or salt to taste if you don't want to put pepper. And of course, you're going to need flour. Let me show you how we do the flour, which is the most important part, and then we'll move on with the recipe. The exact measurements for this recipe will be on my website, and the link to that is down below. We're going to start off with all-purpose flour and whole wheat flour. I'm using this mixture because I like the texture of the paratha or the roti. With this, I find that when you use all-purpose flour, the dough is a little too stretchy for my liking. And if you use all-purpose, just the whole wheat flour, I don't like the texture that it gives it. So a combination of both. Again, exact measurements on my website. The combination of both is just perfect. So we're going to mix this together really well, and then I'm going to go in with some salt and then mix that in, and then you want to start off with lukewarm water, and you want to use a little bit of water at a time. So just like basic roti dough or chapati dough, any dough that you're making that requires water, you don't dump in all the water at first, because the amount of water you're going to need or the amount of liquid you're going to need depends very much on the type of flour you're using, the quality of flour, humidity, and how you store your flour. There's so many factors that go into this. So go in with a little bit of water and then just kind of knead the dough, bring the dough together at this point. So I like to do this squeezing method where I squeeze the mix in between my palm, and then it just kind of spills out in between my knuckles and my fingers. What happens is the moisture easily gets into the dough and you don't have to work it too much. So this technique works for me. If you have difficulty kneading dough, maybe give this one a try. Now, because there's whole wheat flour in this, it's not going to be a very sticky dough. You'll notice, with the all-purpose flour, when you knead all-purpose flour, it tends to be a little bit stickier. But when you knead whole wheat flour, it's not sticky. So with the combination, the stickiness is definitely not that much. So continue adding water and just getting all the dry bits of flour incorporated in there with the water. And you want a soft dough, but you don't want it too soft and sticky. And this is you're gonna need to knead this. So once the dough comes together, you want to start kneading it. Use your knuckles, or using your knuckles and just kind of punching it in helps, and then just folding it in and then over helps as well. Once you've kneaded the dough a while, you want to go ahead and add the oil, and this helps to smoothen out the dough. And again, you're using your that knuckle action. I'm not sure what it's called, but kneading the dough here with your knuckles helps get really does help with the kneading. This is how I learned it actually at school as well, and how I've always done at home. So when the dough is done, you're going to see that it's it's not a non-sticky dough. So you're going to add some oil on top, and then we're going to definitely need to rest this dough. So it is best to always rest your roti dough, because it's easier to roll it out and then your rotis come out nice and soft. So I'm going to rest this for about 20 minutes, and while I do that, I'm going to get the stuffing prepared. So moving on to the stuffing, I have about 4 medium-sized potatoes that I've boiled and smashed here. And then I'm going to chop up some cilantro. I like the taste of cilantro in this dish. It definitely brings out the flavor. Just brings the flavors together. If you can have cilantro, then please go ahead and add it. If you cannot have cilantro, if you have one of those when you get those chemical reactions, and try culantro. If you can find it in the Asian stores, you don't get the reaction. That's a tip. My sister can't have cilantro, but when she has culantro, which is a long bandhanya as they call it, she's okay with it. And for the spices, I have some garam masala, I have some cumin powder and some turmeric. You can play around with your spices. Definitely, it's a recipe you can tweak. but this is what I like in it. I'm gonna go in with the cilantro and some salt to taste. And then something that I do that's a little different is I add some whole wheat flour. You can use all-purpose flour too, but I like to add some flour to the potato mix. So what this does is not only help it bind, potato itself will bind, but this helps it bind a little bit further, but it sort of becomes like this glue in between when you stuff the paratha. It becomes this glue, and I find this little tip, it's a small amount of potatoes, like 1/8 of a cup, but it helps. It definitely helps. So you can leave it out if you don't want to add the flour, but if you have difficulty with the potato spilling out too much, sometimes the potato still spills out. It's part of cooking. Not everything's going to be perfect, but this definitely helps in that arena. You're just going to mix everything together, very basic. Try not to over mix it, but make sure that it's mixed enough so everything is well incorporated. You don't want any big chunks of spices or anything like that. And then you're going to set it aside, and then we're going to go back to working on our dough. So now that the dough has rested for a good 20 minutes, we're going to knead this for a few seconds just to kind of get everything together. And you see the consistency of the dough is going to change a little bit. It's going to become a little bit softer, a little bit more supple, and so much easier to work with. I love when the dough rests and you work with the dough after that. So much easier to work with. Then we're going to start dividing this into equal parts. Now, it is up to you completely how big or small you like your parathas. But I will give you one piece of advice. Parathas are never very small. And the reason being is, you're putting in stuffing, and so you want a good amount of dough to be able to stuff, and then you want to roll it out. Parathas are not going to be thin. In my opinion, a paratha should be, a little bit thicker than roti because there is stuffing in it. And if you roll it out too thin, you run the risk of the stuffing spilling out. So I like to divide mine up to 8 equal pieces. So best way to do that is to make a log and divide that log into 2, and then that into 2, and it's kind of that way you get equal parts. Now the little balls are called loyas. You want to smooth them out, flatten them out, and keep them aside. When it's time to roll out and stuff the parathas, what I like to do is roll out the loyas into a small disc, and then I like to flatten out the edges a little bit because this is where all of the dough comes together as you start pinching it. Then you want to take the desired amount. So here I have approximately 1/4 of a cup that I've put in. I eyeball the filling, but like I said, you can put in as much or as little as you want. Then using your fingers, you just stuff it in and pull the edges of the roti or the little disc together as shown in the video. You want to pinch this really well, and then I like to flatten it out using my fingers. This helps the mixture to get distributed throughout before you roll it out, and then I just dust it in some dry flour and leave it aside. I do all of the loyas like this before I roll them out, and I feel like the little waiting period while you're doing all of them helps the dough and the filling to kind of come together and just stick together. But if you don't want to do it that way, that's fine, but I just personally feel like that helps. Then you want to dust it with some flour, and then with a very light hand just start rolling it out. It's very important that you use plenty of flour when rolling this out because the filling is moist. Naturally it's going to be moist. It's not a dry filling, so as you can see, there are parts that the potato does get exposed. So what I do is I dust some flour on it, and it does not break open or break apart while you're cooking this. It stays together, but depending on the amount of filling you put, it is gonna come through, because as you're rolling it out, the dough is getting thinner. So don't be alarmed if you see little specks of a green or yellow, just picking through the dough. It's completely fine as long as your filling isn't coming out and isn't falling out of the paratha. It's fine. Then you're gonna take a tawa or a pan or any griddle of your choice. I like to use my non-stick, and then you're gonna put this on medium heat. You do not want to use high heat because you want this to cook slowly. First you put it on the pan, and then as soon as you give it like maybe 30 seconds, and then you flip it. Once you flip it, you put either ghee. If you eat ghee, if you're not vegan or dairy free, if you're not avoiding it, then ghee would be the best choice. Butter, a good quality butter works really well too. If you're vegan or dairy free like I am, then use whichever butter that you use. Coconut oil would also work with this, as would any other oil, but you do need oil or butter or ghee for this. Once you get that applied, you're gonna flip it, and then you're gonna apply the ghee or butter, whatever you're using, onto this side as well. And while you're applying it, the other side is cooking. So essentially what you're looking for is little brown marks. This is how I like my paratha or my roti. I like the little brown marks on it. And on the paratha, because there's oil and ghee use, you are gonna see those brown spots. Once you spread the ghee on this side, you're gonna wait maybe 30 seconds to 45 seconds, but you can always check the bottom, and it is gonna start smoking like this because there's ghee on it. That's why it's so important to keep your flame on medium. Flip it once again, you start seeing the brown spots. Beautiful paratha if you have these brown spots on them, and then you flip it again, and then it's done. They taste best when they're nice and hot. But they also keep really well, and they're great for like your lunchbox. They are really good with some amge achar or mango achar, especially the spicy ones, or you could just have it with whatever side dish you like. Definitely give this recipe a try and let me know what you think of it. And if you like this video, please don't forget to hit the like button. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, please subscribe. And until next time, I'll see you guys very soon. Bye bye.